How cool is it that the same God who created mountains and oceans and galaxies looked at you and thought the world needed one of you? What a great quote to talk about throat chakra. And that's this week's topic. Throat is definitely, and you hear me say this in each episode, and maybe I just feel like I say it in each episode. Throat's a hard one. Throat's an important one. After you've done the heart work and you've opened yourself up to yourself and to others, you've found your authenticness in your own heart. Now it's time to move into the throat and be able to express that, to share your needs, to share your desires, to share all of that stuff that you've found as you worked up your way through their chakras. And so throat, what's really cool about throat is once you have that open heart, you're able to authentically share. You're able to be of service through your voice. And with the throat, because it is so close to your ears, and there's other chakras in there, but that aren't major chakras. But I like to think because the throat is so close to the pineal gland and the ear chakra, that part of throat is not just sharing your voice, but it's listening to others, to hearing their needs and hearing their desires so that you can support them with your words, that you can connect with them. And that's all part of expression. And to me, that's what the throat chakra is it's authentically expressing yourself into the world. And let me tell you how hard that one has been and how much I have worked through it. And I thank you for being a part of that journey by listening to the podcast, because that's allowed me the space to really work on my own throat chakra and opening it. So let's get started with today's episode. How much do you know about the chakras? You probably heard them talked about as the 7 main energy centers in your body. You may have heard of them in yoga class, through guided meditation, or in Reiki. Maybe you know a little bit about the chakras, but aren't really sure how to use them to guide you. I'm creating a deep dive into the chakras and color therapy for the next 8 weeks. Each week, my guest and I will discuss one chakra, how they've connected to the energy of that chakra through their journey, and how they feel guided or inspired by the energy. Sound interesting? I hope you'll enjoy the conversation. Let's get started. Welcome to today's episode of Grounding Journey. We're talking about throat, and I have got my new friend, Liz Phillips, here. And we had so much fun chatting before. We had to pause because we needed everything on recording, right, Liz?
That's right. Yeah, we tend to say too much at the same time.
Yes.
And then we're like, no, we need to get this on recording.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Liz, you have a neat story, because a lot of the people who I have on the podcast end up being healers by calling, by intention. And you have a neat story that you have been a school teacher for most of your life and just realized you weren't taking care of yourself and that it was time to take care of yourself. So you've been taking a year off of teaching and really discovering what your passion is and how to expand your business. So I understand that you have done Reiki Master Teacher training, you're a mindfulness meditation teacher, and you dabble with a whole lot of other modalities of healing. And I think
sure do. Yep.
That makes you a perfect person to talk about throat, because we're all learning so much about our throats right now and how to express ourselves. And first off, I want to give you a high five for not staying where you were and settling, but exploring. And I think that's what I really want to inspire people to do with this podcast, is explore. Whether you're exploring healing modalities, you're exploring your chakras, you're exploring what you want to do with your life, explore. Don't just sit stagnant. So welcome, Liz. I'm happy to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks. One of my favorite quotes is, and I'm going to get it wrong, so, but you'll understand it when I start to say it. If you're not happy where you are, move. You're not a tree, something like that. That's pretty much my life motto. If I'm not happy, then what do I need to make me happier? And do I need to stay in this situation? And talk about throat chakra, huh? It's really truly trying to find myself so I can express my authentic self. And that's what the throat's all about. This is like a year-long journey of the throat.
Oh, I tell you what, well, as I said to you before, I've got my little blue calcite here with me so that I've got some strength with my throat. But throat chakra is definitely one that I am working through right now with the podcast, with getting my comfortable being on social media, with getting ready to launch all my products. It's one that I really resonate with at the moment. And it's funny because I've had this cough, this phlegmy cough that I sound like I smoke a pack of cigarettes a day for months. I mean, for years, over the last few months, every morning when I wake up. And my husband says to me the other day, I don't know what energy center you need to work on, but could you get rid of that?
And I bothering him.
Yeah. I mean, it bothers me. Like, I totally get it. But I looked at him and laughed and said, what's right here? My throat? What am I working on? Oh, I guess that makes sense. Well,
you're
you
just
working on it.
I know, right? Get it done. Your body energy center and your physical body is just releasing some things probably that you need to in order to be able to express. And
yeah, for me, it's definitely clearing out some stuff stuff that's stuck and covering. And phlegm is that kind of like hanging on goo.
Well, phlegm is a response to something for sure. Right. Yeah. I find when I eat the wrong kinds of foods, I have that problem as well. So I think that it's some sort of an inflammation response. I could be wrong. I'm not a doctor, but I know that when I eat the wrong foods, I have this buildup of that throat clearing stuff. And I know that that's not good for me. So if I were to switch it to an energetic, spiritual thought, perhaps the food I'm eating is not the best expression for me. Like it doesn't help me to express my authentic self. I don't know. I've never really delved that deep into it. I just physically noticed, okay, that doesn't feel right. So I probably should not eat that anymore.
For sure. Well,
anyways, I just went off into my own little world for a second, thinking about that. I need to delve deeper into that and figure out spiritually and energetically why I react that way to some foods, which I know aren't good for me. So that'll be my homework after this episode.
I think that brought up a great point. And I love these podcasts because I totally haven't finished introducing you the right way. We're already in conversation and we're already
That's my fault.
Well, no, it's perfect though, because I'm already like, oh, let's go over here. Let's go over there. So talking about for a second where you said that exploring what it is and what resonates for you and what it is spiritually and what's being held in there for you. I think that's one of the really great things about exploring stuff and about figuring out what resonates for you, because with the chakras, like throat's pretty cut and dry, it's expression, but it's also authentic expression. And for me to have throat chakra open, your heart's got to be open because you've got to know your authentic true self to be able to express that. But if you think about root chakra can be your ancestors, your history, your foundation. It can be your safety and security. It can also, there's so many elements that each chakra can have in it that it's deciding what resonates for you and what at the moment is really appearing for you to dig into. Right. And so I think that was a great expression for you to talk about the food. And I encourage everybody who's listening, if you have a cough, sometimes you just have the flu and you've got postnasal drip. Other times you're like, what am I not saying? Wow, I have an upset stomach all the time. What am I not digesting? Really using that energy center to see how your body's talking to yourself.
Yep, absolutely. I do that every day.
Well,
go ahead.
Okay. We are going to talk all over each other. We'll just have to use body language to be like, no, your turn.
Oh, it is our throat chakra episode. So I feel like, our throats are getting ready and we're just talking. Sometimes okay, you go ahead. You finish what you need to do. I'm just going to sit quietly until I'm ready.
Well, so what I was going to say is when I asked what chakras you wanted to talk about, you said you were connected to throat, heart, and solar, if you could have 3 to talk about. So I'm sure those will all come into play in the conversation today. But What I loved when you talked about throat is the whole throat of we're not speaking up because we don't feel worthy, not feeling worthy affects our self-compassion and our worthiness. Taking care of ourselves because we don't love ourselves is throat, heart. There's so many elements in that. And so I want to dig into a little bit of your journey of you were a teacher, you decided it was time to take a break, and you've struggled a little bit since you started that.
Yeah.
And struggle is where we find the beautiful if we're open to seeing it. So let's talk about, now, how long were you a teacher?
Well, before I was a teacher, I actually was in the restaurant business too. So I was a bartender and manager for 10 years. And then I went back to school in my 30s and I became a teacher, and I've taught either kindergarten or as a special education teacher for the past 16 years.
Okay.
So 16 years.
You have definitely dedicated yourself to others and supporting, because kindergarten, that's some serious teaching. You really are kind of creating what it's going to be like.
Yeah, you set the stage for hopefully the rest of their education, public education or education. And there's a lot of pressure these days to teach kids how to read and write before they're even out of kindergarten. So talking about unable to express myself, I joke, it's not funny, but I do joke. I joke a lot just because it lightens the mood.
Sometimes you gotta, yeah.
But I always said the last 3 years that I was in that profession, I said it's killing my soul. And I truly meant energetically, it just was difficult. And I kept thinking to myself, if I stop doing this, then there's something wrong, like I failed. And I just have to keep thinking like, no, you're just honoring yourself. And what you understand about yourself now is different than 16 years ago. And choosing not to do that is actually expressing my needs and opening my heart and strengthening my solar plexus, realizing my worth and not doing what I think everyone else thinks I should do, which is stay in a profession because there's something at the end of it, like a pension. And I'm like, not important. Sorry. So,
well, and I would imagine just from the couple of teachers that I know who all worked in lower income schools, public schooling, I could just see how that in itself would close your chakra, because you're not able to teach the kids what you want to. You have to be PC. You're not able to say the things. Nobody's representing you. So that experience of your profession alone, I would imagine, really shut things down for you. So there's all that you've got to clear, plus society you got to clear. Like there's so much in your throat. It's amazing that you're doing that work.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. But I went into the profession because, first I thought it was probably something I could rely on. It wasn't bartending, or which was demanding in and of itself. And I just wanted something that was, I knew I was helping, and it just felt right and good and fun at the time. I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun teaching kids, and mainly because of the kids and mainly because of the parents, and really getting to know them and building relationships with them. But there was a time when I felt as if I was going there almost robotic, no feeling, just get through the day, do what I have to do, then go home and do even more hours of that. And it was getting difficult. It didn't feel right. So I made a shift.
I can see that. And so I have a little advantage of leading the conversation because we talked ahead of time. So I'll kind of pick up some points that I found really valuable along your journey that you shared. And I appreciate that you're sharing your vulnerability with us right now, because that is part of the throat, is being vulnerable with your expression, expressing your true self. So thank you so much for that and for giving us that as a gift.
Of course.
So I know that you were struggling. You were in a downward spiral, you said, of not taking care of yourself. And as you just mentioned, you went to work, you did your thing, you came home, you did your thing. So tell us what life looked like in March of 2020, because May of 2020 is when you kind of had your wake up call. So talk to us right before May of where you were when you realized you were in a downward spiral and not taking care of yourself?
Yeah, so it was it was my 50th birthday, right before or right after I had my daughter threw a surprise party for me, and I think it was right after that I found out that I had a thrombophlebitis in my leg. So what that is a surface level blood clot right in your leg. Um, I giggle, but it's like, it's not funny. Again, it's my little nervous giggle and I try to lighten the mood. But I thought, holy crap, what the hell is happening? When I went to see the doctor about it, he was like, you just need to move more. And that was when I sort of realized, like, oh yeah, so for 3 years I've been not moving. I literally have been sitting, other than teaching all day. I would come home and sit and drink and eat whatever the hell I wanted because was in a downward spiral. And I didn't realize that until then, that my actions or inactions for the past 3 years have really affected my body, but not only my body, obviously, energetically. I wasn't feeling like I even deserved to just get up and move my body. I was physically and emotionally exhausted and drained just from the teaching alone that I couldn't get up and move and do anything. So it really, everything came to a head with that diagnosis, but it did take me a few months, even after knowing that I needed to get up and walk and lose some weight, and strengthen my legs in order for this to dissolve on its own. It didn't take me until, well, February I started 2020. And then of course we had to shut down everything and quarantine, and that feeling of uncertainty. And, I'm sure everyone struggled around that time in March and April, because we just weren't sure what was happening in the world. And going outside was dangerous. So I hit another mini downward spiral in those 2 months. And then May, I finally kicked myself in the butt and said, all right, let's go. And just started walking. But it was a struggle. My feet hurt. I put on sneakers that were nice and snug and fitted, and it hurt. I couldn't walk for 20 minutes. It's crazy to me that I couldn't put on a pair of sneakers and walk comfortably without pain for 20 minutes. It was shocking to me. But that's how I started 3 days a week. I was like, let's just go 20 minutes, go 10 minutes out away from the house, 10 minutes back, and you'll be done. And then after the first week or two, I was like, okay, I'll do 4 days. And I actually gave myself a bit of a range, and it wasn't 20 minutes. It was more like between 15 and 20 minutes. If you do anything between those numbers, then you're succeeding. Because I always was very hard on myself. And I would have high expectations and be like, nope, you're going to go out for an hour and that's it. And then obviously I would not have achieved that at that point in time unknowingly. So I started very small, and I just started clawing my way out of that hole that I stuck myself in for 3 years.
Well, and I think that it's so important that you share that, because so many of us, whether our bodies are manifesting our spiritual neglect, or if our bodies are being neglected, so many of us at any point of our time, pandemic or not, like, I don't want to talk about the COVID thing, but we've all been in that place of being miserable at our job, being unhappy in a relationship, being overwhelmed just by life. There's something that happens for all of us. And I think part of that is because then we get to make the conscious choice to feel better, to do the things our body needs, to do the things our spirit needs. And so it's a journey and it's a struggle. I know that I've been through it over and over again. Sometimes it's severe, sometimes it's less severe. This experience for you was severe because it was your health. So when you started really working on taking care of yourself, how did you connect that to your spirituality, to your chakras, to where you were on your journey?
I started, I'll go way, way back, if you don't mind. I started my education in all of these things in 2014 or 15. And even then, with all of those strategies and all of this information I had about chakras and meditation, mindfulness, and all of that, I still struggled. Practicing daily, still struggled. Giving Reiki to myself, still struggled. Sending Reiki to my classroom, still struggled. I was really in a bad place. But these two modalities, these two practices, if you will, really did pull me through, because I did have these strategies. I knew energetically where I was blocked and what I needed to work on. I constantly do throat, solar plexus, and heart work on myself all the time, because I know that I have struggled with self-worth. I know that I struggle with self-compassion. I know that I struggle with either not expressing myself or expressing way too much of myself. There's never a balance. So that's really, along with the physical activity and the nutrition, I really did focus on those things energetically, spiritually, and it's still, like you say, it's a work in progress. I'm always working on these things, no matter what, no matter how I feel right now. I'm always working on these things. I don't know if that answered your question, but those were the tools that I use to truly bring myself out of it. And you know what? And like you said, not going back to school this year, that threw me for another loop, completely threw me. I did not expect to feel the way I felt not returning to school. I thought it would have a big celebration and joy and happiness, and this is amazing. And you know what? I'm trying to get to that point. I have glimmers of, this is amazing. This is a gift. Having this time off to explore another career is a gift. So I really do have great days where I have to force that mindset shift instead of what the heck am I doing?
And I think that's where I was. Yeah, I think that's a great point, because I want to explore a little bit more in solar plexus, heart, and throat. But because you brought up you're taking this time off and you thought it was going to be this amazing thing, because I just did an episode before we started the chakra series that was expectations versus intentions. And I think that's something that we all set these expectations. You have this expectation of, I'm going to have this year off. It's going to be magnificent. It's going to be way better than it was. And here you are going, oh, what am I doing with my life? Like, there's so much pressure on yourself to figure that out. Yep. So again, I appreciate your honesty of not saying it's all sunshine and roses and nothing being real about it.
Okay, listen, nothing it has in my life, and I'm not in my victim mentality, ego mode right now, but nothing has been easy in my life ever. I don't know why I expected.
Like, you're being real with yourself at the moment, right?
What? Yeah, but I truly had a bit of an identity crisis, existential crisis, I think. This is when you become really mindful and you work with energy centers and you try to work on yourself a lot, there's a bit of a downside. You become fully aware of what you're thinking and feeling, and sometimes you just don't want to be. But I became fully aware that I am a doer, I'm not a beer, and probably why I got into mindful meditation, because I was finally sitting and not doing. And my mindset is, and it's shifting, it absolutely is shifting since I had this minor crisis in August and September when all of my colleagues went back to school, that it's okay to be and not do. Do doesn't mean success. Being doesn't mean failure. There's a time for rest. There's a time for integration. There's a time to do. And I just needed to stop. What I need to do is continually remind myself that it's okay if I'm just sitting watching the British baking show for the 20th time. It's okay. It's rest. It's integration. It's rest. That's what I tell myself. I don't know.
I love that. It's integration. I use that one all the time. I mean, not all the time, but I definitely am like, nope. And I call it the void, because I read something, Melody Beatty, who I really love, her daily readers. She talks about the void between working really hard. It's, the valley, and then you go back up the hill to do some more work. So in that valley, in that void, in that integration, just allow yourself to breathe, just allow yourself to be. And as you said, you're a doer, not a beer. So there's a definite learning to be, even though it's your integration, it's your void, it's your pause. There's something in it for you to learn at that same time.
Yeah, for so long, I kept my head down and plowed ahead. And I've had successes. I was the first person to graduate from college in my family. I'm the youngest of 8. My dad was the youngest of 10. My mom was really intelligent, but didn't finish high school. And only 4 of us out of 8 graduated from high school. So to be the youngest of those 8 to graduate from high school, get my undergrad, and then my master's, all being the first person, it was, I think, in a way, just pushing away all the other crap. Excuse my language. I didn't know if I could speak this way. I always say I'm a teacher, so when I'm not teaching, I have a foul mouth because I can't do that in the classroom.
It just snaps and comes right out.
Yeah, it's just my excuse. But I tended to put my head down and achieve and achieve and achieve. And those were all great things, but it did not solve the internal struggle and trauma that I had, growing up. So I think this settling down and not doing is just a response to like the negative feeling that I get from not doing things, and the failure that I perceive is the case when I'm not doing things. I think really just stems from that what I had been doing for my whole life for 50 years. Head down, go move ahead. And when you accumulate all these certificates and things, then you're a success and you're happy. And this is what you're working toward. But, I clearly wasn't happy because I had that little downward spiral issue. And I kind of was going through the motions teaching, I think, because that's what everyone thought that was the right thing to do. It was responsible. And I don't know. I think I don't know if I'm being clear here, but I think my issue with my doing truly is because it was such a thing that I did my whole life. Do, achieve. And then it just pushed away all the stuff that I really needed to work on. And that's kind of what came up from 2017 to 2020. That was the stuff that came up in 2017, I think, put me on that downward spiral of not caring for myself.
Well, and sometimes I think we have to have that downward spiral. I think back when I was married to my first husband. He was my high school sweetheart. We had been together 15 plus years, half my life. And the way it was, I could have kept going and not known there was better out there. But it took the downward spiral for me to say, no, I'm getting out. And now I'm in this great marriage. We have our struggles. Let's be real.
Everyone does.
Yeah, but I'm married to a person who listens to me, who tells me to clear my energy centers because I keep coughing. We have to sometimes have that downward spiral so that we wake up, because we weren't listening. I have on my bulletin board somewhere, I just cleaned it the other day. I may have removed it, but the voice of the divine is as loud as our willingness to listen.
Yep. And if we're not aware that there is a voice, then we won't even hear it.
Right. And it starts speaking through our body. It starts speaking in other manners that we don't have a choice to not listen.
I always say that this leg thing was scary enough to shift me to move, but not, didn't kill me, but it was scary enough to move. And that's I'm such a quote person, I have to say. And that's the other thing. There's 2 other quotes or thoughts. One being, the universe makes you really uncomfortable so that you move. And so when things do get really bad, it's a great indicator of what's not right. Why am I not in alignment? Where do I need to shift? What do I need to focus on? And the other one being, it's funny because I just used this quote from one of my intros to my podcast, but it is, it's about when your body whispers. It's important to listen when your body whispers so you don't have to hear it scream. And that is so true when it comes to Reiki and energy and chakras, because prolonged imbalances can create physical manifestations. And so it's really important to listen Listen to your body.
Well, and that brings us back to talking about, I know that this episode we were going to talk about throat, but I love that you talk about throat, heart, and solar plexus, because it's also
the Trinity. I call it the Trinity. I call it that. That's what I.
Well, it brings up the whole point of each works together. You can't just work on your throat if you haven't worked on your heart and are going to go to your third eye. Like, they feed each other. I'm personally a girl who starts at my root because I need a strong, stable foundation and moves up. I know my best girlfriend, my soul sister, starts at her crown and comes down because she's more kind of upper level etheric. So depending on which way you're going, but so because I just want to touch on solar plexus, for me is letting your light shine, the passion, the fire inside of you, which also then leads to the heart of knowing your true authentic self, and then to the throat of expressing your true authentic self so that your fire and your passion can burn. How would you kind of classify your solar throat heart or solar heart throat?
And I think you said it very clearly earlier. Solar plexus really is about expressing your true self. So doesn't that go right in line with your throat? I mean, it's expression. Solar plexus is believing your worth. Solar plexus helps you to achieve goals. And if you don't feel like you're worthy of achieving a goal, then you won't. And what if that goal happens to be self-care, physical, something that you need to do? You won't. And that affects your heart because you don't feel like you're worthy. And if you don't feel like you're worthy, then you may not speak up for yourself and say, I need a half an hour to go out. Can you take care of the kids so I can do that? So it clearly does affect everything. If you can't express yourself because you don't feel worthy, then you may not care for yourself, which is all those three. And it's just like this awful cycle that you can be stuck in. And if those three are all blocked and not flowing, then how on earth is your root getting any of that flow? How on earth is your, what is happening? So it really can affect everything. I think it all starts in the heart, really, because, self-compassion and empathy and kindness and gratitude all start here. And then with that comes the willingness to be able to speak up for ourselves, the feeling of worth, to be able to understand who we are and to express ourselves. Your third eye being the truth and intuition. If you don't believe you're worthy, why would you even trust your intuition? Like you don't, there's no confidence there to do so. And that can cause really bad anxiety and depression and stress. Especially when your root's out of balance because you don't feel safe. So you think something awful is going to happen, and guess what? It probably is not, but you don't feel safe or secure. So I think everything's affected when these three are not working. Yeah.
Well, and I think it's not just when those three aren't working, but it's when things aren't unblocked and open. I don't like to use the word balance with chakras because balance to me puts too much pressure on it. I don't believe that you ever get them all balanced, because I know sometimes I'm working on my heart, which means it's a little more open. And if I've got it to be balanced, then that means my throat, so balance doesn't work for me, because you'll hear a lot of people say, oh, are your chakras balanced? Are you this? Where
it's funny that you say that. When I practice on clients, I say open, closed, blocked, balanced. And I always say, and it doesn't mean closed doesn't mean closed, open doesn't mean open. And balance is really the goal after a Reiki session, but that's because I just gave them Reiki at every single chakra. So yeah, it's funny. I use words, but I always say to my clients, and that's not what I mean. This is really what I mean. That's funny. Yeah.
Well, and I think it's really, it's about unblocking them, about removing that stagnant energy, that stagnant stuff that's been sitting there for our lifetimes. And doing this kind of work isn't a one and done. Oh, I went from root to crown, I'm good. It's, I went from root to crown, and oh, I need to go back here, and then I'm going to go back through. And it's a cycle of going from top to bottom, bottom to top, and moving fluidly through them.
And it's a daily practice because we encounter lots of different emotional, physical, spiritual obstacles in our day. So it's really a daily practice.
Mm-hmm. So I love to use meditation sometimes to open myself, to see where my blockages are. I personally love yoga to really move that energy because I heard somebody say, and I'm so sorry I can't accredit the proper person with it, but I read somewhere or heard somebody say that yoga is one of the best forms of therapy, because how many times have you cried on the mat and you don't know why? You're doing a hip opener, you start crying.
That's why, because it's all in the hips.
Well, and but people say, oh, it was an instant release. And it wasn't, because it took you 6 months of practicing that hip opener before you finally got there for it to open. So it's comparable. One of my girlfriends would fight me over this, and she's the one who listens to the podcast. So I'm going to get a phone call about this one.
That's okay. What's her name?
Right.
I just want to say hi.
Yeah. So, therapy is great, but also just sometimes doing that work in yoga, because it's going to do the same release that you're going to get in therapy, because it's that stagnant stuff that you don't know is there.
But it's even so much more, because you're moving and you're moving physically, but you're connecting your mind to your body. We are so disconnected. Those two things are so disconnected for the most part, because we either live in our head, and then we physically, experience the body, not in the head. So like, we really need to connect. And doing those hip openers can really help release a lot of past trauma.
Yes. Well, so I use meditation, I use yoga, and then I love crystals because they're my play toys. We should all
you can feel the energy from it. So you wouldn't be using it if you didn't really feel the energy from them. Yeah.
So what things I know you love Reiki, but what things do you use to help you stay clear and remove blocks and open?
I do so many things. Some that may not be considered like a mode of healing, but I'll mention most of them if I can. Definitely meditation. And my meditation is different daily, depending on what I want to achieve for my practice. A lot of times there are affirmations attached to my chakras. So I am worthy, I am loved. I'm whole and perfect just the way I am. I oftentimes use affirmations. I've been dabbling with some visualization lately to open up my crown and third eye a little bit. And so meditation is one of the biggest things. My walks, when I walk alone, I turn it into it's kind of like a gratitude walk. And I've never said this out loud, but this is what it's turning into a bit. Noticing really mindful, but then really being so thankful for the birds that I just, I love birds. If I see a hawk or a blue jay or a cardinal, I notice the trees, the leaves, the temperature, the smells. I just really enjoy doing that. And that helps to ground me and become obviously more present. I do a lot of mindful activities, which I call them mindless, but they really do open my mind to being able to delve deep. I'd like to journal. I like to do doodling, like Zen tangling. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
Oh, I haven't heard of that.
Oh, really?
Tell me more.
I wish I had an example to show you. So Zen tangling, I am not an expert. I have just done a couple of workshops with my art teacher friend. We combine our forces and we do creative intentions workshop. And she teaches watercolor. Everyone picks a word and they essentially make it in a frame with watercolors and Sharpies. And Zen tangling is just a mindful way to doodle. So
okay.
You can Google it.
I love that word.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's fun, especially if you're someone who likes to doodle and create. I do word searches. Word searches for me calm me down. I know it's weird, right? And I watch the British Baking Show.
I love that you whisper that you watch that. Nobody's judging you.
That's my dirty little secret. Every time, so you're talking about your husband, every time my partner, I've been with him for 28 years. We're not married yet, but we're not going to be married. And everyone always asks, why aren't you? And I'm like, just because I don't want to.
I mean, at this point, you're not. Like 6-7 years in, maybe, but at this point, you're not.
No. Whenever I have that on, he's like, why are you watching this again? And I say things like, it's a trauma response. It's very comforting. And sometimes I say that just to make him feel bad, but I tease, and it does. It's very soothing. I know what's going to happen, and they're creating beautiful things. And it's just really, it helps me to relax and calm myself down. Those are the things that I do: self Reiki, meditate, journal, doodle, word searches, British baking show.
I love that it's a variety, and that you give yourself the grace to have this like gamut, because that way you're not putting your pressure.
Also help other people. That really truly fills me up. And I know we're supposed to take care of ourselves first. And I'm a big proponent of, and teach women, anyone really, that you have to take care of yourself first. And I don't just mean physically, I truly mean spiritually and emotionally. You have to do that first so you can be there for others. But in my business, it's just, I'm a heart-centered entrepreneur. It's just what I do. I help people. And doing that really puts my life into perspective, because I see what people are going through. And I don't say things like, oh my God, I'm so better off. I more think like, wow, that's interesting. Like, I learned so much from my clients. And really, my world, the perspective that I have on my world and my life has just broadened, I guess, has become clearer in working with people. And it's my favorite thing to do.
Well, I love that you bring up your business, because I know that our followers are going to have really enjoyed the conversation with you and giggled along with us. Tell us a little bit more about what you do and how people can find you that want to connect with you.
So when I learned meditation, I loved it so much that I wanted to be able to teach it, because that's kind of like what I do. When I learned about Reiki, I loved it so much that I wanted to teach it. So I think deep down, I'm a teacher. First and foremost, I want to give people stuff, information, help them learn and grow and heal. So I had become trained in 2015 as a mindful meditation teacher. And in 2017, I decided to take it on the road. And I had my own little traveling business. And what that means simply is that I would go to a couple of different places, and I'd have a mindful meditation with Reiki class weekly, or I would give Reiki, have sessions in different places. And then in 2019, I found a space where I could do all of that on my own. And I opened, it was called Mainstream Meditation at the time, because my mind is like, everyone needs to be doing this. Meditation should be just like taking an Advil. Like, you got an issue, you have pain. I don't know. I don't take things like that. So meditation for me was my medicine. And I really thought that everyone should be exposed to it. So that's why I named it that at the time. And since then I've learned other skills and trades and healing modalities. And I shifted to mainstream coaching and wellness, because I do coach, and it is overall wellness. So I'm in Massachusetts, but I do have a website. I'm on Facebook and I'm on Instagram, and you can follow me, and I have a podcast.
Tell us about your podcast. Because
I'm a doer.
Yeah. You're diverse. Remember, you're diverse.
Yeah. Yes, I'm a pivoter too. So let me tell you, once COVID hit and I had to close down my in-person business and I had to go online, it was much like teaching kindergarten. I was like, okay, what am I learning from kindergarten that I can now do with my business? So that was good. But my podcast is called Heal: Conversations to Guide You Toward Personal Growth and Overall Well-Being. I've said that a few times. But heal isn't just about healing, because I don't think we're broken to heal. I really don't. But heal actually stands for different words. So H is honoring your past, healing with humor, among some other things. E is educate yourself to different ways of healing, energy. And again, some other E's I have, but these are the main letters and words. A is for awareness and adapting, amongst other things. And L is love, live in the present and let go. So heal actually stands for a number of different things. And it's based on my book, which I haven't finished. I told you, I avoid, and do. So I've started many different projects to avoid finishing that book. But it'll happen one of these days.
I love it.
Yeah. Well, so that's my podcast. Much. Yeah.
And then tell us your website and your Instagram or Facebook handle.
Oh, sure. Oh, thank you so much. It's www.mainstreammeditation.com. That's my website. On Facebook, I'm really active. It's Mainstream Coaching and Wellness. And then on Instagram, I'm also active. And it's at mainstream_coaching_wellness.
Okay. Well, I know people are going to want to check you out. So we'll make sure to put all the links to that on the Grounding Journey podcast.com and this show notes. So if you're listening and you're driving and you want to check more out about Liz, but you didn't get all that written down, just go to groundingjourney.com and you can click on the blog post. It's got all of Liz's information. Liz, thank you so much for being here. I really enjoy having these conversations, and when we have a topic, seeing where it really goes. And so in our bonus episode, we're going to talk about the 4 agreements. Never read it, heard lots about it. It's on my bookshelf. So I'm excited that you're going to join us for the bonus episode. And thank you again so much for being here, for your vulnerability and your authenticity.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I love talking with you.
Thanks. Thanks for being a part of my journey. I would love to be part of yours. If you're interested in being a guest on Grounding Journey, I would love to hear from you. Please visit my website, groundingjourneypodcast.com, and you'll see the link to apply.